Hey guys, Bubba here at the Bubbanews, all in one word, all in one news. Guys, it is June 2nd already. Holy moly, this is getting crazy. Wow. Yeah, we're still here, but you know what? We continue to look forward because we are just one day closer to seeing Jesus Christ. But I'm calling this one All Eyes on Iran, and this one's going to be nuts. And this one's going to be about 45 minutes, but we're going to go into some pretty in-depth stuff. We'll show some images, pictures, whatnot. I know people love graphics, all that good stuff. And then, yeah, there's just so much going on. But, oh, man, guys, I'm going to try to play catch-up a little bit with some of yesterday's news with Iran because it all ties into today's. Hey. All right, guys, get you something coffee, get you something to drink, get you some popcorn, hit pause if you need to. Otherwise, just get going. I'll just have water like good old buddy Tom over there at the Watchman River. Huge shout out to him. But yeah, all eyes are on Iran because Iran is warning Europe in the International Atomic Energy Agency. They're having a June 9th through the 10th. They're having a meeting there, June 9 and 10. So all eyes on Iran refers to intense focus this week on Iran's nuclear program. And we're going to see that today because this is really getting crazy because these are some big meetings that are coming up. And Trump's deadline with Iran is right after this International Atomic Energy Agency meeting, June 11 and 12. So the meeting there with Mr. Rafael Grossi, over there on the left-hand side, who looks so happy. Yeah, that meeting with Mr. Aragachi there of Iran and the International Atomic Energy Agency is June 9 and 10. And then Trump's deadline is the next 2 days, June 11 and 12. This guy even held what did he do? He actually held a call with the Director General, Aragachi there on the right-hand side. And he told him that Iran demands that the International Atomic Energy Agency acknowledge that Iran is in full compliance with the JCPOA at the Board of Directors meeting, or Board of Governors meeting next week. But Iran's refusal to halt uranium enrichment and the reports of their non-compliance are raising big-time tensions. So Israel's preparing for strikes on nuclear sites in Iran. Even though the U.S. is still pushing for diplomacy, but these talks are showing little progress, especially, but, the risk of escalation are seemingly getting closer than a diplomatic breakthrough. It's getting really nuts. He said yesterday that if some countries misuse Iran's cooperation with the agency of this report, Iran will take and implement proportionate actions in response. In other words, Iran wants the International Atomic Energy Agency to cover up their reports that Iran is being in noncompliance. Because if the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, shows that Iran is in noncompliance, Iran will do something very drastic. That's when all bets are off. And the coming Elon prophecy could quickly become front and center. And the next image, this is what I'm talking about, because this was posted by Israel Radar on Twitter X yesterday. And he said, will Israel attack Iran, and what's the best time to attack Iran? Clear skies are ideal for precision strikes, especially targeting fortified assets like Iran's nuclear sites. Modern munitions are less weather sensitive, but clear skies are still preferable for maximum accuracy and damage assessment. In other words, so they can get pictures and video and satellite images to see how well they did. In fall season, roughly September through November, is likely the optimal time for an Israeli strike on Iran's nuke project, due to the favorable weather conditions for the long-range stealth operations. And just as a reminder, Israel's successful assault on the Iranian air defenses and missile facilities that took place last year, remember that? First in April, but then also in October of 2024. Both April and October, both are cooler months. Well, an attack during the summer is not good either. It's flying in high temps. That's not ideal. So the window is closing for this attack by mid-June. This is what the article says. And Trump's deadline is June 11 and 12. The best time to attack is when the attack is totally unexpected and the enemy is not prepared. However, I think that the time period of Iran not being prepared is over. All right, now let's get to today's world. Oh, today's world is crazy town, guys. But you know what? Nothing can stop God's plan for your life. And that's just a paraphrase of Isaiah 14:27. Here's what it says. For the Lord of hosts has planned. And who can frustrate it? And as for his outstretched or stretched out hand, who can turn it back? Tag teams with Isaiah 43 verse 13. Even from eternity, I am he. And there is none who can deliver out of my hand. I act, and who can reverse it? Man, guys, Scripture is coming so alive lately. I love it, love it, love it, love it. But you know what? We're seeing these world signs and these end times of prophetic stuff. Right before I hit play, I saw that big 6.2 earthquake that just hit off the coast of Turkey there in Greece. I was just reading a bunch of reports. A bunch of people felt it in Turkey. And, after erupting for 7 hours, well, Mount Etna had a big explosion earlier today. And you guys have seen some of these pictures. The eruption was marked by a powerful explosion from the volcano's southeast crater, prompting local authorities to issue warnings as tourists and visitors flocked to witness the event. Many people on those volcano tours, they quickly had to evacuate, and they all had to run for cover. This was crazy. Quote, our guide told us that if the volcano had collapsed outward instead of inward, we and a lot of others would have been in really big trouble. Guys, the earth is waking up. This is getting absolutely nuts. And this is just the beginning. And I was just texting a buddy earlier today. It's almost like I believe that's what Revelation 8 verse 12 talks about. When 1/3 of the sun is dimmed, 1/3 of the sky, 1/3 of the stars, 1/3 of the moon is darkened. If these volcanoes and the fires that happen when all the grass is burned, and 1/3 of the trees are burned up before this next prophecy of those trumpets, the 1/3. You know what? It makes sense in my mind that smoke and ash from volcanoes, number one, and smoke from these fires, number two, will definitely dim out the sun and the moon and the stars' light by 1/3. Hey. All right, let's keep going. This is nuts too, because the U.S. is giving the nod to Syria to bring. This is nuts. Check this out. Just read this article. Oh man, I'll let you guys read that. But the same foreign fighters that slaughtered the Alawite people, remember that back in April? Well, they get the nod of approval by Trump's envoy to join Israel's enemy, the new Assyrian army. Syrian officials said that under the plan, 3,500 foreign fighters, mainly the Uyghurs from China and neighboring countries, would join a newly formed unit. That's not good. Because these Muslim fighters, the Uyghur fighters and stuff, they're from China and all that area. Oh, those guys are nasty. But the U.S. has basically given its blessing to a plan by Syria's new leadership to incorporate thousands of foreign jihadists, former rebel fighters, into the Syrian National Army, provided that it does so transparently, Donald Trump's envoy said. Syrian defense officials said that under the plan, some 3,500 fighters, mainly Uyghurs from China and other neighboring countries, would join a newly formed unit, the 84th Syrian Army Division, which is also including Syrians that they're putting in as well. But just a few weeks ago, the USA had been demanding that the new Syrian president, Jolani, his leadership, exclude these foreign fighters from the security forces. But Washington's approach to Syria has changed big time since Trump toured the Middle East last month. I mean, Trump agreed to lift all those Assad-era sanctions on Syria after he met with Syria's interim president, Ahmed al-Shara, al-Jilani there in Riyadh. And these Uyghur fighters and stuff from China and Central Asia are members of the Turkestan Islamic Party. And it's a group designated as terrorist by Beijing. This is how bad this group is. You know it's bad when China calls these guys terrorists who were joining the new Syrian army on Israel's border. What could possibly go wrong with the wars that are coming up? I mean, they've been talking about this today in the Arab world. And now, you know it's bad when now even the Arab channels don't like this either, what's going on. Even they can smell the trouble that's brewing. Seriously. Here's what it says. While Syria's new institutions rally around President Jolani's push for reconciliation and international engagement with the USA and Israel, saying that we're going to join the Abraham Accords, a defiant voice has emerged from outside the state structure on the one that rejects Jolani and threatens to reignite instability. And the group is calling itself Syria Ansar al-Sunnah. I call it SAS. But so far, it's been the only one to publicly oppose Jolani's trajectory. And this group is among the newest armed movements to surface following the collapse of the Assad regime. And in a recent statement they circulated online, the group vowed to escalate the attacks across Syria and in the northern Lebanese city of Tripoli, where previously claimed activity. The group's founding statement is part of a campaign of sectarian revenge targeting the Alawites and Shiites. Oh, we're going to come back to that story in a minute, but this is crazy too. We got to watch this on the north. Zephaniah, I believe it's 4 verse 6. I've got to look those verses up because an army and enemy comes from the north. Anywho, but you know what? They launched another missile there towards the Houthis did towards Israel this afternoon. So Israel's going to need to act again on Yemen soon. You know what? Israel has plenty of land-based missiles they could use even because the Houthis don't have an air defense system, as well as Israeli submarines there in the Red Sea. So here's the big story that popped out earlier today, because it feels like we're coming down to the end of the line, and this is not looking good. Because Israel will not agree to Iran being allowed to enrich uranium. And this story came out by Axios there, Barack David. He's really good usually. And he is, but, it's really wild. Because he came out with this today. And the nuclear deal proposal that the U.S. gave Iran on Saturday will allow limited low-level uranium enrichment on Iranian soil for a to-be-determined period of time. But this is contradicting the public statements from the top USA officials. I mean, White House envoy Steve Witkoff and Secretary of State Marco Rubio have said publicly that the U.S. will not allow Iran to enrich uranium and will demand the full dismantlement of Iran's nuclear facilities. So Iran has consistently said that it will not sign any deal that bans enrichment for civilian purposes. This is a red line. But that's irreconcilable with the U.S. public posture. You know what? It's crazy, but by making this offer, at least what he was reporting, the Trump administration is risking humongous backlash from its allies on Capitol Hill and in Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government and dozens of Republican senators have pushed Trump's administration to maintain red lines on zero nuclear enrichment and full dismantling of Iran's nuclear program. So, under the proposal, Iran would not be allowed to build any new enrichment facilities and must dismantle critical infrastructure used for converting and processing uranium. This is how it's changed, because under this new proposal, Iran wouldn't be allowed to build any new enrichment facilities, and they must dismantle the stuff that they use for converting and processing uranium. They're not going to do that. The proposal also stated that Iran would have to halt new research and development of their centrifuges. Iran's not going to do that. Iran won't be allowed to develop domestic enrichment capabilities beyond those necessary for civilian purposes. That's definitely not going to happen. Iran will have to temporarily reduce its enrichment concentration down to 3%. This period will be agreed upon in negotiations. They will not reduce and go backwards. You know what I mean? If they're over 60%, why would they even temporarily reduce their enrichment concentration down to 3? They're you know what I mean? They're going for it. Iran's underground enrichment facilities will have to be non-operational for a period of time as agreed to by the parties. And again, that's very doubtful, because that new U.S. proposal will alarm Netanyahu. I mean, but Trump kept cautioning Netanyahu not to do anything that would harm these nuclear negotiations. But Netanyahu continues to advocate military action against Iran's nuclear facilities. And Israel's been preparing to move swiftly to military action and attack if these talks collapse. And that's what's scaring the U.S. officials, because they're concerned that Netanyahu might even make his move without a green light from Trump. So what's next? Well, I saw this picture earlier, and I wanted to Save it. I thought it was cool. But you know what? They're saying that a sixth round of nuclear talks with Iran is expected to be scheduled in the coming days. Well, they better hurry up and schedule this because we all know that the IAEA meeting's coming up June 9 and 10, and Trump's deadline is June 11 and 12. I'm just not so sure how long Netanyahu's going to hold off. Bibi might be giving Trump the next 10 to 12 days, maybe. I don't know. But if yet, you know what I mean? But if Netanyahu and Israel don't feel safe, and they won't, they will move forward with attack plans. With the help of the United States, or without. You know, just like Trump thinks that a diplomacy deal with Iran is going to work out. Well, Israel knows that if they have to do what they have to do and attack Iran by themselves, well, they know that that will work out as well. I can't say it enough this year. TikTok. Seriously, this is getting crazy. Because if this goes through and Trump allows Iran to continue enriching uranium, then that could be the divorce papers that Trump serves Netanyahu. I said, do you want to see the honeymoon between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu come to a grinding stop quickly? If Netanyahu were to attack Iran after Donald Trump warned Bibi not to do it, then that would be the ultimate betrayal to Trump. Why do I say that? Because Trump commands respect. He wants to be obeyed. And he wants to be the top dog in the Middle East. You want to really tick off Trump? Mess with Trump's art of the deal. His pride gets way in the way. But we've got to keep an eye on this because this could get nuts. All eyes on Iran. But this came out too over the weekend. And the charge against Israel, we've got to talk about the UN. You know, the two-state solution stuff still coming up in the middle of all this Iran stuff with June coming up. Ay, come quickly, Lord Jesus. Seriously, guys, this is getting nuts. But you know, UN Chief Antonio Guterres says that he was appalled by the reports of Palestinians killed and injured while seeking aid in Gaza yesterday. He said it is unacceptable that Palestinians are risking their lives for food. I call for an immediate and independent investigation into these events and for perpetrators to be held accountable. Israel has clear obligations under international humanitarian law to agree to and facilitate humanitarian aid. The unimpeded entry of assistance at scale to meet the enormous needs in Gaza must be restored immediately. In other words, he wants Israel not to have to search the trucks. He wants to be able to just trust him and allow him to bring in whatever he wants to Hamas. But notice how he never mentions the heinous crimes by Hamas and their groupies who shoot at the Gazans, who attempt to get food from the Americans, the GHF group. But this is starting to get interesting. I'm going to switch gears here for a second to Gog and Magog style talk, because this sure looks like a maritime trade embargo. They want to put it into place soon for vessels that are going to travel to Haifa, Israel, or Tel Aviv via the Mediterranean Sea. Technically, Turkey nor Libya can place an embargo against Israel in international waters, but we see what the Houthis have done to the Red Sea. So seeing Libya and Turkey are working hand in hand sure screams out more and more that the players are uniting for the Gog Magog scenario that we see in Ezekiel 38 verses 2 to 6. Here's what happened. Libya's House of Representatives formed a technical committee to review and update the 2019 maritime border deal with Turkey. Libya wants to have territorial waters that touch basically to combine there with Turkey's territorial waters. And Algeria is to the left of Libya, not on this picture, but, you know, they're all aboard with becoming basically the Russian 2.0 outpost in northern Africa. Algeria, just west there of Libya. And I'm with Bill Salas and his beliefs that he believes that part of this, the seize and plunder of booty, you know what I mean? There in the verses is because they're going to put an embargo on Israel now because they have it from the Red Sea, from the Houthis, but then these Gog and Magog players are going to do this against Israel there in the Mediterranean. The purpose of the Russian with Iran, Turkey, and Libya invasion of Israel in the Gog and Magog war is to capture spoil and to seize plunder. Ezekiel 38 verse 12. I mean, these are just puzzle pieces. But check this out. Even Algeria. Algeria just recently, in the past couple months, got brand new Su-57 Russian airplanes, the stealth ones that Russia has not sold to any other country, but Algeria got them. Well, Algeria just got their hands on Russia's S-400 missile defense system as well. This country is quickly shaping up to be a near mirror image of the Russian military. With their latest acquisitions, Algeria is locking in some of Russia's most advanced hardware, including the brand new Su-57 stealth fighter jets. Libya's next door neighbor, Algeria, is most likely included in the Put/Libya grouping that we see mentioned there in Ezekiel 38, verse 5. Algeria purchased 2 regiments of the S-400 systems from Russia, each with 8 launch vehicles and 4 missiles per launcher, as per a 2024 Algeria article, and I can't read it in French there. But this was supported by a 2025 Army recognition report confirming new operational deployment. So that's just getting nuts. So now Algeria has the S-300 and they have the S-400. Now, why does Algeria need these? Who's their enemy? Well, let's keep going because Trump's 60-day deadline for Iran to reach a nuclear deal with the U.S. or face military actions expires June 11th. That's next Wednesday, isn't it? Yeah. Wow. The new 60-day countdown started when the nuclear negotiations began with Iran on April 12th. So that's why we're looking at the end of this 60 days. I said, we'll see how long it takes for this dog to bite. The Prince of Persia that we read about there in Daniel 11, verse 13 and 11, verse 20. Well, the Prince of Persia won't be happy when God puts Jeremiah 49, verses 34 to 37 in motion against Elam into full-blown prophetic action, because that's a coming too. But I'm keeping my eye on this growing new terror group in Syria that I talked about a little bit earlier. The Syria Ansar al-Sunnah. Well, they're showcasing basically the Black Flag Army. Have you guys ever researched that? Well, the new terrorist group says that they pose a threat to Syria's security they want to torpedo the efforts of Jolani's new government in Syria. So they went public in February of this year after Jolani took power in December and have targeted the Alawites with attacks by so-called lone wolves and described itself as a decentralized force that could kill anytime and anywhere. These guys are the rebels. Because as they break away from fighting with the HTS, the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, well, that's the militia of President Ahmed al-Shara Jolani. HTS, well, these guys are the break-off rebels of that group. Even worse. And now they've been recently recruiting the Syrian civilians while they're waiting for their economy to come back with the lifting of these sanctions. But in recent months, these guys took proud responsibility for their killings, especially in the areas populated by the Alawites. There in Homs, the coastal region, and in the surrounding areas there of Hama. And they then threatened the Druze community with an attack in Suwaida on April 29th, after that video was published in which the Prophet Muhammad was supposedly insulted. Well, Israel had to get involved to help protect the Druze people. And then they went on to, when they did slaughter the Alawites, they described those events as the tip of the iceberg, and that minorities, infidels, and Christians are at the top of the group's priority list. So this concentration on the minority territories, especially the Alawite territories in the rural regions of Hama, and Homs, well, this is part of a plan to gain a foothold in rural areas, far from the control of Jolani and his HTS boys. But check it out. Homs and Hama, the strong cities there in Syria, they're part of the Damascus prophecy, guys. And if this whole new group is moving in there, possibly what if they come in to want to take over Syria's chemical weapons? Oh man, then Israel would have to act on Damascus in a hurry. Wow. Anyway, let's keep going. Oh, man. Oh, yeah, this is starting to get wild, guys. But anyway, they're preparing for a future phase in which they're planning to lead a military confrontation with the new Jolani Syrian government. Ay, ay, ay. So their presence in the vicinity of Homs gives the geographical advantage of easily reaching the Lebanese border and then preparing for an invasion of Lebanon. This is part of their plans. I just researched this today. This is what I'm saying. This is starting to get nuts. The new SAS Black Flag Army Group is enjoying the relaxed laws and the new open borders with Lebanon, including the transitional government and the borders of the Syrian state. Because many Lebanese people, they fled to Syria to escape the Israeli bombings on Beirut and southern Lebanon last year before the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. And now these Lebanese men that have fled Lebanon with their families, well, they've been joining this group to march into Lebanon with this new army one day soon. Here's, according to an Institute for Science Works, ISW, forgive me, but the research paper, they said that they're probably striving to destabilize the fragile political transition in Syria in order to establish an Islamist state. Basically, the caliphate that Islam prophecy is predicting. So, but all keep an eye on these kind of cuckoos. But yeah, it just feels like that's what these guys are. These guys are the bad guys. These guys really are. These guys are nuts. So then we have the story from Axios on Iran. Well, it does. It feels like a really bad Wimbledon tennis match going back and forth. Because now Iran is drafting a negative response to the U.S. proposal, which could be interpreted as a rejection of the United States offer. So Iran is poised to reject this U.S. proposal that the U.S. wants to put together to end this long-term nuclear dispute. And an Iranian diplomat said that this new proposal is a non-starter because it fails to address Iran's interests and leaves Washington, D.C.'s stance on the uranium enrichment unchanged. Among clashing red lines is Iran's rejection of the United States' demand that Iran commit to scrapping their uranium enrichment, viewed as a potential pathway to developing nuclear bombs. Duh. Well, Tehran says it wants to master nuclear technology for peaceful purposes only, and has long denied accusations by the West that says that Iran is trying to develop nuclear weapons, which we all know they are. So Tehran demands the immediate removal of all U.S.-imposed curbs that impair its oil-based economy. Iran wants first now for the United States to lift all the sanctions. But for the United States, the removal of nuclear-related sanctions will only come if Iran can prove that they are in compliance with the new U.S. proposal regarding no enrichment. So this is what I mean. It sounds like a very bad tennis match going back and forth. But dozens of Iranian institutions that are vital to Iran's economy, including its central bank and national oil company, have been sanctioned since 2018 for supporting terrorism and weapons proliferation. Well, Trump in 2018 ditched Iran's 2015 nuclear pact with the six powers and reimposed sanctions that have crippled Iran's economy. And in return, Iran has rapidly violated the pact's curbs on its nuclear program. So the 2015 deal required Iran to take steps to restrict its nuclear program, which would then get financial relief from the United States, the European Union, and UN even. But the Iranian diplomat basically still said it is a non-starter and believes that it unilaterally attempts to impose a bad deal on Iran through excessive demands. All right, we're going to take a break from Iran for a second so I can get a cup of coffee. Goodness. But the status quo, we're going to the Temple Mount now because the status quo is changing on the Temple Mount. And those who call it Al-Aqsa are not happy. They're saying that the Jews are trying to take it over. Earlier today, Jewish extremists stormed Al-Aqsa Mosque and tried to reach the Dome of the Rock Mosque carrying some wine and the remains of an offering. 4 Israeli settlers raided the yards of the Dome of the Rock carrying bread, alcohol, wine, and a blood-stained cloth to offer sacrifices, while Palestinian worshippers confronted them. So here comes the video, but this is starting to get some crazy town attention. And I'm going to point this out because we're going to start seeing more of this kind of behavior by Jews just because they're getting excited for their third, you know what I mean? They're getting excited for their third temple. Guys, I'm only showing these things because I know a lot of us as Americans don't get to see these kind of things. But you know how the Jews are getting excited for their coming third temple? Well, the Arab world is noticing too. Today's incident here, shown in this video, came basically a week since the Israeli National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, you guys know him, and we'll show a picture of him here in a second, he came onto the Temple Mount. Oh, this guy. Wait a minute. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, we're going to get to that one. But yeah, let's just keep going. But yeah, so it came 1 week after Ben-Gvir came onto the Temple Mount grounds, and he declared from there that Jewish prayer, including prostration, which is the full lying down, is now allowed, provoking the feelings of Muslims and Arabs. Ben-Gvir said after visiting the Temple Mount that many Jews are now flowing to the Temple Mount, using the Jewish name of the site. He added, "Today, thank God, it has become possible to pray on the Temple Mount and to prostrate. We thank God for that." And since taking office in December of 2022, Ben-Gvir has visited or stormed Al-Aqsa, is what the Arab channels call it. They never say visiting the Temple Mount. They always say, he stormed Al-Aqsa. Anyway, he's visited or stormed Al-Aqsa several times and vowed to change the status quo. And that's a big one. Because he wants to change it to the point of establishing Jewish prayers in it with complete freedom and without restrictions. But the status quo means the arrangement that has prevailed for decades in the agreement between Israel and Jordan, since 1967, in which Jews and other non-Muslims are allowed to walk around Al-Aqsa during certain hours, provided that the number of Jews is very specific and without any religious rituals or without any prayers. So the agreement stipulates that the Jordan's Antiquity Society, the Islamic WAQF, the Waqf for their department, is responsible for the mosque affairs. But Ben-Gvir rejects it. And Ben-Gvir's statements are encouraging Jews to pray there on the Temple Mount. Introduce offerings as well. And demand the establishment of the temple in the place of the mosque. The status quo is changing. But you know what else is changing? Donald Trump today. He came out from hiding and he said that the auto pen should have stopped Iran a long time ago. So after the report earlier today from Axios that stated a secret nuclear proposal had been drafted by the U.S. and presented on Saturday to Iran, the one that would allow limited low-level uranium enrichment to continue in Iran, well, President Trump responded. He stated in a post on Truth Social, under our potential agreement, we will not allow any enrichment of uranium. It almost sounded like a declaration of war in that text, honestly. So the Iran-Israel scenario, it's sure to kick off pretty soon now, it feels like. And just as a reminder, Iran said it will never abandon its rights to enrichment. Trump doesn't have, Trump doesn't leave many choices to Iran. You have he's basically given them three choices. You can either dismantle your enrichment facilities, but Iran would have to forget its nuclear weapons program. But if Iran dismantles its enrichment facilities and does not enrich anymore, Trump will lift U.S. sanctions. But then Iran will become militarily weaker. Not necessarily, because they could always buy weapons now that they're getting money. Okay, well, what's another thing? Well, if there's no change and Iran keeps enriching, and they are not going to not enrich, they are going to keep going and keep enriching. Well, then the United States will not lift any financial sanctions, and the United States or Israel could then bomb those enrichment facilities. Or basically, Iran has a third choice, maybe in the next 10 to 12 days or so. Make a nuclear weapon, an intercontinental vehicle, and publicly test it on Israel. But we know that God will not allow that to happen. Because something is coming. All eyes on Iran. Because we read in Jeremiah 49 verses 34 to 37 and 37 specifically that God will break the bow of Elam. But something, and I've shared this before, but I figured I'd do it again. But talking about the radioactive cloud at the Bushehr nuclear power plant, this is from an emergency practice there in 2016, and how they predicted the wind patterns back then. What would happen even if the Bushehr nuclear power plant got hit, say, by Israel or the United States? Well, between 16 and 20 hours, the radiation would cover 40 to 100% of Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, and Oman. There's also indication, and also partially there into very northeast Saudi Arabia. But I figured I would end off with this, so you guys could, because I know Derek Otto, I think, Michael Saya, some other guys out there, buddies of mine, have texted me. If you guys ever want to text me, the description's in the down below, number down there. But I figured I'd use an old Bill Salas screenshot here. This is a great screenshot to get, because the IDF still is coming against Iran. Jeremiah 49 verses 34 to 39. The IDF is still coming against Syria. Isaiah 17, 1 through 14, but especially right there, the IDF in specifics in I believe it's in verse 6 and verse 9. But yeah, in Jeremiah 49, 23 to 27, the IDF still has Hezbollah to deal with. The IDF still has the Palestinians to deal with. The IDF is in the process of dealing with Gaza. Jordan is still coming up. Egypt is still coming up. Saudi Arabia is still coming up. Arab enemies are coming up. IDF versus Iran down at the bottom. We are not told who creates the disaster in Elam, but it could involve the IDF. Iran is not identified in Psalm 83, which is very fascinating. But even when we go there into Jeremiah 49, so I will shatter Elam before their enemies, that would be the United States, Israel, and before those who seek their lives, I will bring calamity upon them. My fierce anger, declares the Lord. I will send out the sword after them until I have consumed them. It does sound like military wording there with the sword. But that whole area right there by the Bushehr nuclear power plant in southern Iran, there on the Mediterranean coast, it sits on the top of, I believe, 2 or 3 tectonic plates that come together. So something's coming. And we know that these areas right here, Arak, Fordo, Natanz, Isfahan, Bushehr, all of those areas are Elam. So all eyes are on Iran. It's hard to say. It's hard to say fast. All eyes are on Iran. All eyes on Iran. There, that's all I should say. Keep it simple, stupid. The KISS method, isn't that the way it's... But yeah, guys, this is starting to get crazy, and it feels like there's a race. I don't know if you guys feel this too, but it feels like there's a race between the Harpazo and these Middle East wars kicking off. And it may just be that the Harpazo is what kicks off these Middle East wars that are coming up. Because right now, it sure feels like it's being restrained. All right, guys, I'll get off of here. We'll get it uploaded. And so some of us can shoot over there to Tyler's video at 10 p.m. Eastern time. They're over there at Generation 243 for a big shout out to Isaiah 153 again on Saturday night. That was a lot of fun doing the video on Shavuot and Pentecost. And thank you guys for sending me emails. Thank you guys for sending me text. Thank you guys for sending me even cards and fun stuff. You guys are helping donate. Thank you guys. For those of you who are new to the channel, thank you so much for joining the Telegram side, the YouTube side. You know, I'm just a bald-headed guy in Indiana, but I just have a passion for serving the Lord Jesus Christ in these final days and just sharing with the world the Bible prophecies that are coming to pass. Because as we're looking for the Lord's return, it's wild to watch the world inside out turn. I mean, it's just wild watching it not all falling apart, but watching it all falling into place. Guys, I thank you so much. I can't wait to meet you here, there, in the air. Maranatha, Jesus Christ is coming so soon.